Hi friends, in our time together today, I'm talking about just a few additional ways to play the tonguing articulation on our whistles. A couple of days ago, I had a video where I introduced tonguing as an articulation, a means of ornamentation on our whistles. And we went through a number of things, and I'll stick a link at the end of this video to that one if you've not seen that one yet. But so many amazing comments from you all on that video. Thank you all so much. And there were so many great comments. I'm kind of using this video to consolidate a lot of those and dive just a little more deeply into tonguing as a means of articulation, because there are some other ways to do it. There are some other thoughts on it that I thought were really important to share, because I know everybody doesn't read all the comments. I get it. So thank you to all of you who dove in to that conversation, and special thanks to, and don't you love the way YouTube channel names come out? There's stories behind all of these. Oh, excuse me. Susdroid, special thanks to also Redwall JDS, Coffin Man 5007, and Michael Nunley 7609. Thank you all. I really, really appreciate it. And for just this conversation, I'm using the newer Mazur High D, and I'll stick a link to how you could connect and look at Michel's wonderful whistles, and we'll talk more about them soon again. But anyway, so I'm diving in a little further. The first thing I want to say, I started off the previous video talking about how Mary Bergen actually uses tonguing as the very first means of articulation in talking about the whistles. And that was like chapter 3. Chapter 4, she starts in volume 1. At chapter 4, she starts talking about proper ornamentation and then gets into cuts. But tonguing, she listed herself. So, even on our whistles, even when we play traditional music, we are blending many traditions. We are learning from many traditions, many cultures, and so the music we play is so blended. We don't just talk about Irish music. We talk about Scots-Irish and Irish-Scots, depending upon where a tune started. We talk about Breton influences. We talk about polkas and waltzes. Polkas weren't introduced to Ireland until like 1849, and waltzes were imported as well, and yet they are a core part of the tradition. Everybody loves, I hope everybody loves, Turlough O'Carolan. Turlough O'Carolan's training was a more European style training, and then you see in his playing, in his compositions, you see this beautiful blending where that European style has actually been adopted into his expression, into an Irish manner and of playing and composing. And I love all that. And then you could play your whistle traditional music. You play classical pieces on your whistle, jazz, whatever you want to play. There's nothing stopping you from enjoying your whistle in all forms of music. And to do that, though, we need to expand some of our horizons into different things we could do. So here are a few different additions to what you could do in tonguing. Now, a very useful one, no matter which tradition you're playing, and I didn't mention this in my previous video, and a good friend in the community mentioned this. Each of these were mentioned by a different great friend in the community and supported by others. So use tonguing to end a phrase or a tune. Like at the end of a tune, if you're not rolling straight into another tune, I like to close it with some sort of ornamentation. Depending upon how you want the tune to end depends upon what you're going to do in that instance. But you can also you could bring a clean ending to a note in a phrase or a tune that you don't want, like, you don't want it to fade off, or you're not sure what else to do with it. You've already used a number of other ornamentations. You just want a clean stop. Well, you could use tonguing. Let me show some of that. So like if you're playing a note, you could just end that by a tonguing. Just a softer tonguing, and that was just a gentle way to stop it. Or you could take your tongue, place it gently on the roof of your mouth, right behind your teeth, and end a note as you stop breathing, and it cleans the edges of that note. Now, I could stop breathing, but no, my tongue just automatically goes there. Sorry. If I stop breathing, it trails a little. So if I want to do that, I'm going to add a fade. But if I want a clean edge, I'm going to just place my tongue at the top, right behind my teeth, gently on my palate, my upper palate, so that it actually stops my airflow. At the same time, I'm stopping the flow of the breath to create a clean edge. And that creates a much cleaner edge to your note at the ending of it. And that's brilliant. So thanks for that one. Well, this little piece here is actually an add-in to the video. I finished recording the video, and I immediately realized that I neglected to talk about one of the recommendations that our friends made that I also really wanted to bring up. And that is use tonguing or some other ornament or articulation to enter a note and bring it to the right pitch. You know, sometimes if you're playing that second octave, and you're just sort of blowing, it's not always easy, particularly in a whistle that requires a higher velocity of air, greater breath pressure, as we say. It's not always easy to just pull that right into tune. Now, I've mentioned this before, and so it really bears repeating now, that what you do is when you're going into that note, particularly the ones that require a change of pressure, notice that little bit of squeakiness going from the first octave G to the second. I could do a couple of things. I could enter the second octave with a tongue, a slightly sharper tongue, or even a gentle da-da tongue, and come into that note on pitch. Oh, that was a bad example. And yes, it's also a brief pause. And so you're able to enter the note with that slightly sharper tongue that enables you to hit the pitch immediately, excuse me, as opposed to uncleanly moving into that next note. And that works going from the first to the second octaves, or in any awkward note transition, you could use tonguing. Now, I have also said you could slide to it. A lot of this is situationally dependent on the tune. You know, cut to it, or depends upon whether, do you want clean edges? Do you want a standard ornamentation edge? Do you want an emotive edge? Where you're sliding, what do you want? And But for that cleaner edge where you're transitioning to another note and you want that other note to, that second note to come in cleanly in tune, tonguing is a great method for accomplishing that. All right, back to what I recorded earlier. So the next is to use tonguing to simulate something similar to a trill. Like a trill is it's just that rapid flutter of a finger. Now, you could then think about like a Scottish or a Spanish R, brog, where you've got that little roll to the R. So take that brr, brr, and actually hold it out. It's called flutter tonguing, is one of the proper phrases for that. It takes a little bit of practice, but think of rain or something like that, and it's a different style of something similar to a trill. You could call it a tongue trill, but it's a flutter. Almost sounds like raindrops coming down. That's another technique. Now, you're not going to use that tons, but it's fun to know because you might want to pull it out sometime. There might be a situation where you use that. Now, rather than the tongue trill, that flutter tongue, you can do the, like I've been talking about ta 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 and da 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 da. Think of ka 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 ka, where that is closer to the back of your throat. It leans guttural, but it isn't quite ka 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 ka. And it's sharpish, similar to a ta ta ta. It's not softer like the da 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 da. Sorry, I'm getting those. That the da 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 should have been softer. I was ta-taing more. Anyway, so the ka ka is interesting, and I'll use that in a moment for something else because I've got one more to share. But using that ka-ka-ka-ka, you could create a different kind of flutter that leans toward a growl. And that's pretty interesting as well. And you can even make it very growly if you want. I won't do that. That's a thing I always love doing on the saxophone. Get. You can get really, you can really change the volume on that well and play with it a lot. So that's another method. One more. So there's what we call single tonguing. Anyway, that's just a single tongue to the note, and you can only do that so fast. And a lot of people can do it a lot faster than I. But if you actually, here's a side note. If you want to feel faster, if you want to sound faster, throw in some of that rapid single tonguing with some other ornamentation, and it'll sound a lot. It'll sound like you're really just flying along and with a good firm articulation on each note, but you're just combining things. It works, trust me. The other thing, there's something called double and triple tonguing. And so some people do a couple of things. Some teachers say, think of a flag in the breeze and you're blowing. So think of the end of your tongue, instead of that hard flutter that is a roll, think of a softer flutter that is not slapping so much, but slowed down a bit. So it's just a gentle flutter in the breeze, as it were. I have a hard time with that because I go stronger and I come more on that flutter. A lot of people also say, instead of ta 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 ta, because you can only do that so fast, or you can only do that so fast. Some people do a front, back, middle of their tongue. Taka 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 taka. And with practice, you can get your tongue to relax and you can go a lot faster. And that's a double tonguing. And you can even increase that to be faster. And depending upon what other places in your mouth you add another sound in, you can create like triple tonguing. And those are really, really advanced skills. Some of you were able to do it. I'm not great at it. I got to be honest. I never have been, because I love some of those other styles so much. I've never focused on learning double, triple tonguing that much, but I'm so impressed when people pull it off. But I've not been so impressed as to want to replace a lot of the things I love to do. Anyway, friends who gave us these recommendations, thank you so much. I love it. This is great to expand our repertoire. It's not just here's an ornament, here's an articulation. It's here are multiple ways you can use each of these. You need a huge toolbox for all the things we could do in playing our instruments. So experiment with these. Don't just willy-nilly pull them out, though, because it'll sound goofy. Be very intentional about what ornamentations, what articulations you use. Practice thousands of times in private before pulling something out in public. And that's my recommendation on that, because you want it to sound clean. You want it to sound good. I hope this is helpful, my friends. If nothing else, it's a lot of fun. Until next time, this is Scott Shade. Happy whistling.